not like this is something that could never happen. But before that came to that point, you would say, oh, how could that be? How could that possibly happen? So when we see the other things in the scripture that are about prophecy, we need to remember that. Remember how, well, we couldn't figure out how this would be, and now look, you know. Okay, so the other book that I've been sharing with you is this one called Unearthing the Bible. And there. The reason I'm sharing this with you is because it talks about more recent archaeological discoveries from the Old Testament, things from the Old Testament time period. And so I don't have a copy of this book for you. I just want to share this part with you. But yes, Eve?
It's in the library.
There is one in the library if you want to get your own copy. But I would just like to share a little excerpt from it each time. And the reason is because many people don't think the Bible really happened. They think that somebody, sometime when writing became normal, that they went back and wrote down stories they had heard from their parents and grandparents and great-grandparents, and they wrote it down. So they don't believe like that until this discovery we see here, this discovery that we're going to talk about. They didn't believe that people could write at the time of David. So when we're going to get to a place in 2 Samuel 11 where it's going to say, in the morning David wrote a letter to Joab. Not even, I would say 10 years ago, people were saying that's impossible because David and those ancient peoples, they didn't have writing. They didn't write. They were too barbaric. They didn't have language like that. That was what was being said. So they pretty much discounted scripture as being something that somebody later on went back and made up or wrote out. So let me read to you about this piece of writing that they found. This is a letter about a king. And it was written in ancient Hebrew. It dates back to 1000 BC at the site of Kibbet Quifa, known as the Elah Fortress. Situated on the border between ancient Israel and Philistia, the fortress overlooked the Elah Valley where David defeated Goliath. Because of the 2 gates found at this fortress, the excavators suggest that it was the town of Sharim, meaning 2 gates, which appears in Joshua, Samuel, and Chronicles. The letter was written using black carbon ink on a square shred of pottery. That's called an ostrakhan. And it is also read left to right and appears with the Proto-Canaanite letters similar to those found on the Isbet Sartat Ostrakhan, which differ from the standard Hebrew alphabet known from inscriptions in Israel and Judah during the period of the divided kingdom. This letter from the time of King David, found at the Elah Fortress, is significant not only because it further demonstrates literacy of the Israelites and early use of writing in Hebrew, but the content informs us of historical context that matches descriptions of the time in the Bible. Although the ink is faded and certain letters are difficult to read, the text of 5 lines mentions a command, serving God and the king. Because the fortress was Israelite and the language of the letter was Hebrew, it demonstrates that there was a king in Israel at the time, that the kingdom extended far beyond merely the area of Jerusalem, that Israelites, including their king, were literate and wrote letters, and that the Israelite border with the Philistines was at the Elah Valley at the time of David, all of which is also recorded in the books of Samuel and Chronicles. So isn't that interesting? They said it was an Israelite fortress dated by pottery and radiocarbon texts to approximately 1050 to 970 BC. Excavations at the site uncovered no pig bones, no idols, and pottery distinct from the styles of the nearby Philistine cities, which, along with the Hebrew letter, conclusively demonstrated that it was an Israelite fortress. I think that's so interesting. Dun, 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 dun. So I'll try to find a good one for next time too. Okay, so we have been in 2 Samuel. We're not going to get from 1 to 6. We'll get to, hopefully we'll get to chapter 5, verse 19. We had to stop because it just is too much, too big of a bite to chew. Maybe because I spent so much time reading from these other books, but I like being able to have the evidences for us. So last week we read about how David was supposed to go with the Philistines to fight at Mount Gilboa. Remember that? And the king of Gath trusted him and wanted him with them, but the other leaders, they didn't trust him. And David would have been fighting and killing Israelites, so that was a problem, right? Mm-hmm. So the king of Gath asked David to go back to Ziklag. If you remember, Ziklag was where he was living with the families of all of his armies, to fight another day. So Saul goes to Ziklag to find the Amalekites have ravaged the city, carrying off their wives. That's Saul, that's David. When David gets back to Ziklag, he finds that his hometown, while they were out on this army service, had been ravaged by Amalekites. So I want you to remember that, okay? Mm-hmm. Remember that the Amalekites were the ones who destroyed David's town while he was serving Saul. We're going to be in 2 Samuel chapter 1. Just a minute, I'm just kind of giving you the background. 2 Samuel chapter 1. Okay? So just a reminder,